Hello, everyone. I'm Lisa Martin with Silver Spring Town Center. Welcome to Culinary Traditions of Europe, hosted by Carol Light. This is the fourth of a series of culinary traditions talks that we are doing that have been really fun, informative, and really getting you in the mood for the season. Also, because we're going to talk about food in general. Who doesn't love food? And a lot of the food traditions come from holiday traditions that could happen end of year or any time of the year. Anyway, before we get started, I just wanted to tell you, Silver Spring Town Center, as you may know, is a small nonprofit situated in the Silver Spring Civic Building. And we present over 120 free arts and entertainment programs and events throughout the year, including the Silver Spring Blues Festival. And we are doing a lot of virtual things now. During the winter, we have a robust calendar of events scheduled. So join our Facebook page, check out our website, silverspringtowncenter.com. And while you're there, please consider making a donation by contributing by pressing the contribute button. And a donation of any amount is greatly appreciated. And it helps us to keep our community connected and creatively engaged. Some ways we're doing that are with we have some hands-on art activities that are presented virtually through Zoom, and then we'll have more in person as we get into the spring. And other talks. We have a program. Our next program is actually on January 2nd. We just added. It's Jazzed for a New Year at El Golfo. Two youth jazz ensembles are going to be performing at El Golfo on January 2nd. And then we have a Zoom program on January 10th, hosted by Madeline Caliendo, who is on our board of directors, and we are doing another Follow Your Bliss. And that's also another discussion like this, talking to people who have taken the road less traveled. And it's a really great program to take part in if you can attend. But all of our events are made possible with generous support from Montgomery County, United Therapeutics, the Arts and Humanities of Montgomery County, Maryland State Arts, Montgomery College, and many others. And now we'll get to the program with a wonderful, wonderful, longtime Silver Spring resident and friend, Carol Light, who is an avid cook and just a all-around delightful person to know and inspiring. And I knew she'd be perfect for this, so I invited her to do the talk. Anyway, take it away, Carol.
Okay. Hello, everybody, and thank you all for coming. I am a retired ESO and math teacher with Montgomery County Public Schools. I help program the Washington Folk Festival, done that for many years, and I live 2 blocks from Silver Spring Town Center. So you will see me there for many different programs. I grew up in a very Jewish home, not religiously Jewish, except for 1 year when I was growing up. We didn't even belong to a synagogue, but very culturally Jewish. And my mother was first generation American. Her parents came from Poland when they were recently married. And just about all the food and the baking that my mother did was the baking and the cooking that she learned from her immigrant mother. The first thing that I would like to talk about is my mother's Mondo Brot. My mother was the Mondo Brot queen. Her last 10 years, she lived at Riderwood Retirement Community. And when somebody new moved in, she would bring a little bag of Mondo Brot to them. Now here's my mother cooking Mondo Brot with my grandchildren and her great-grandchildren, Mira Cohen and Ben Cohen, who live nearby in Silver Spring. They loved making Mondo Brot with her. They loved getting the dough ready, patting it out, putting it in the, getting it ready for the oven. And making mando bread is really a very long process. Lisa, if you could show the picture of what the mando bread looks like. It takes 3 different bakings to make the mando bread. First, you have a long loaf, then you cut it and you lay it on its side. Okay, you can see the long loaves, and then you cut it and lay it on its side and put it back in. And then you take it out and you lay it on the other side and put it back in. So it is a very lengthy process. The next picture you will see is the tools that my mother used when making mando bread. And I was fortunate to get her cookie sheets, her flour sifter, her tin measuring can, and what she used to take the flour out of the flour bin and put it in the food processor. Now, when you're making mando bread, you can't use the wire whisk on the food processor. It's so thick that you have to use the dough attachment. My mother actually died in the process of making mando bread. She was 98 and a half years old. She had no thought of dying. She already had the room reserved for her 100th birthday. She was feeling great. She woke up, she started making mando bread to bring to a Rosh Hashanah dinner and to bring for a condolence call, and she died in the middle of it. She died actually doing what she loved doing. And she had told friends the night before that she wanted to die suddenly. So she got her wish. I didn't get mine, which would have been to say goodbye to her. My mother was also great at making sponge cake for Passover. Now, on Passover, you can't eat anything with regular flour in it. And so there's been, okay, skip the sponge cake for now. We're going to go to the matzo balls. And here is my grandson, Ben, very gently shaping the matzo ball batter. You have to be very, very gentle when you shape it, or it gets very tough. And so he's shaping the the matzo ball batter. And the next picture, you will see him actually throwing it into the pot of boiling water. Now, if you buy a package of matzo meal, which you need to make the matzo balls, it would tell you to cook the matzo balls for about 30 minutes. They're hard after 30 minutes. I cook them for over an hour until they're really soft and fluffy. And some of you won't like this, but I put chicken fat in it. When I'm making my chicken broth, I always make it at least a day ahead of when I'm going to make the matzo balls, so that I can put some chicken fat in the matzo balls. And if I don't have enough chicken fat, then I'll add some oil. So Ben used to love coming over and making the matzo balls with me. I've got to have him do it again soon. Also for Passover, this is kreplach. This is not for Passover because the dough is made out of flour. And when my mother used to make these, they were filled with meat, probably with brisket. But she stopped making them many, many years ago. However, I put it on the flyer that you all got. So I figured I had to show you and tell you what kreplach was. I don't even know if they sell it anymore at Parkway Deli. I'll have to see. Okay, back. Here is my daughter-in-law and my granddaughter in Tucson braiding challah. Now, challah is an egg bread, and it's used Friday night and Saturday for Shabbat. And it's also used for Rosh Hashanah and other holidays, but of course, not for Passover. And Sharon, with the help of Yael, if she's in town, make their own challah every Friday night. And they do a really, really good job of it. And after you braid the challah, you put an egg base over it. to make it nice and shiny. And I think there might be another picture of braiding the challah. Yes. Okay, there are the different things that the different tubes of dough that you're going to braid together. And this was taken quite a few years ago. Yael is now 16 years old and making her own challah at times. Okay, back to the sponge cake, back to Passover. On Passover, you cannot use any flour. So my mother used to make the largest, most delicious sponge cakes. The sponge cake was supposed to be overflowing in the pan you just saw. And then you're supposed to hold it upside down so that it comes out nicely. Well, I did something wrong. Can you go back to the last picture, Lisa? I did something wrong because the sponge cake fell out of the pan. And this is my granddaughter and my grandson and our two next door neighbors. And they had so much fun with the sponge cake that came out of the pan because they just scooped it all up and put it right in their mouth and had a good time with it. I made this in 2015, which was the year after my mother died. Have I made it since? No, but I will try it once more. Okay, those are the things that I wanted to share about my mother's Jewish delicacies. Here's more of the sponge cake. And now we're going to hear from Lynn Churian, who is going to introduce herself. And then she's going to tell us about the food from Italy. So take it away, Lynn Churian.
Hi. Thank you so much. Thank you, Lisa, for inviting me. And thank you, Carol, for the introduction and for sharing your traditions. I'm representing Italy in this conversation. My father's mother was from Italy. Family immigrated to this country. And my overwhelming memory, when you ask me to think about my grandmother, I think of the smell of Parmesan cheese because that is what my grandmother's house smelled like. So when you visited, you always walked in the door and you immediately had that wonderful smell. And we lived about 3 hours away from my grandmother when I was little and growing up, but we visited very often. And every time we visited, my grandmother would ask me and my brother what we wanted. And we would both of us would say loudly that we wanted belly buttons. And belly buttons were the family nickname for the handmade tortellini that my grandmother and all the Italian women in our family made. And it was a particular holiday tradition. And I actually have some here. I'm going to put my camera here. This is a bowl of the tortellini, and you can see they do look like belly buttons, little outie belly buttons, and absolutely delicious. They're served in chicken broth, and you would make your, pardon? I thought someone had a question or said something, but so they were served in chicken broth. They're ground chicken, ground pork, and cheese filling in them. And so this is not a red sauce, not spaghetti, not lasagna. What we wanted my Italian grandmother to make were her homemade tortellini that we called belly buttons. And the biggest family tradition with the tortellini is that it was the soup course for every holiday dinner as well. So come October, there would be a gathering of the tortellini makers, and it was multi-generational, mostly the women, but my father would very often pitch in, and someone would be making the pasta, and that was often, the pasta dough was often made the day before so that it had time to rest. but then we would start the assembly line of rolling the pasta, slicing it. Someone would have made the filling, which has to cool before you can put it in the pasta, and then we would shape the tortellini and then leave it to dry, and then freeze it, and then we would have it as the soup course for Thanksgiving and for Christmas as well. So I have very fond memories of getting together with everyone in the family and making this tortellini, and I'm so thankful that I learned how to make it as an adult. I never actually made it as a child, but it was something that that I did. I have this ridiculous photograph just this year, and if you can see that, that was my personal tortellini batch that I made, and then, but this is the tortellini batch that the folks up in Massachusetts made. So when the big group of folks are all together, they make like 500 pieces of tortellini with everybody. Just, I'm sure you can all imagine, you've probably had all these same experiences, and it's sort of like what Carol was sharing. Just, it's extremely tedious to make all these things, but it was so much fun to do it when you're there with family, laughing and talking and working together. So it's just a delight, and it's absolutely delicious. This is actually my dinner tonight. So when I stop talking, I'm going to eat my tortellini and my salad with oil and vinegar dressing. I didn't think there was any other salad dressing for years. I thought everybody had salad with oil and vinegar dressing. And crusty bread, and that is probably more than any other Italian cuisine what I relate to with my family.
Thank you so much, Lynn. I am hungry for that tortellini, and the idea of
enjoying it.
And oh, can I have a piece right now?
You can come over and have some.
Okay.
You're only a few blocks from each other, I think.
Exactly.
Okay.
I'm on Dale Drive, so
I'm right off Dale Drive. And the idea of the family getting together and making it very, very, very special. Thank you so much. Next, we have Maya Tettelbaum, who is going to talk to us about food from Switzerland. Take it away, Maya.
Hi, I'm Maya Teitelbaum Pedret from my maiden name, and I come from the beginning of the Rhine on the border of Austria and Italy. And in my house in Andeer, my father was the blacksmith from 3 or 4 generations in the village, and my mother was an excellent cook. However, the story I'm going to tell is about how the Sunday lunch was made. Every Sunday, since I was a child until I was grown up, we had every Sunday the same lunch. And it was a roast my mother put in the oven. And she told my father exactly how to get ready the risotto, which is a saffron risotto, the Italian risotto, and with arborio rice, which now is very popular. And my mother would go to church at 10:30, and my father had to put that risotto on at 11 o'clock. She came back from church at 11:30, and we had to be exactly at the right time at the table, because that was the most important thing, to have the risotto perfect. And it was made with saffron and the arborio rice from the Po. We call it Po Ebene. It's from the Po region in Italy. And that's very popular here now. I can buy it here. It's also made in America. But the best one is still made in Italy. And so every Sunday we had a roast, arborio rice with saffron, and that was our traditions. And then on Christmas Eve, my mother, we all went to church and in Mandir, where it's a population of about 1,000 people, and the region, the little village I came from, it was prominent in Protestants, and we had Catholics, and so the school, we had a Catholic church and a Protestant church, and at the eve of Christmas Eve, the whole town came together at the Protestant church, and we all, the school children from the village, came together, and that's when we exchanged our gifts, actually. And we didn't have that much. My brothers got a bunch of, I was the youngest, I got more. However, my brothers got a bunch of chocolates, and the Swiss chocolates, and they had them until Easter, and they were fighting over who had the most on Easter. and then we had what they call a mortadella. Italians know what I'm talking about. It's a mortadella, but she made it warm. It's like a big sausage. And again, that's becoming popular again. I never liked it, but people like it. And that's kind of the story of my main thing. But I come also from the Romanish area, where we make Romanish kind of a beautiful pecan pie, where people make. And then, of course, right now, everybody makes Christmas cookies, and they are very popular and special. And that's my story.
Thank you so much, Maya. Those Sunday dinners at exactly noon sound just fantastic. I wonder, are you able to find good saffron here in the DC area?
I used to buy, I used to bring it back from Switzerland. And now you can buy it anywhere. And Trader Joe, of course, has it.
Oh, and Trader Joe's has good saffron.
Yes, it has the real saffron.
Okay. Yeah. And
the Oreo rice at Trader Joe doesn't have it, but you can buy it in Giant. You can buy it in stores. I couldn't do that in the beginning, but now yes. I'm 55 years here in America now, and there was a lot of food which we couldn't find. And I'm talking about food. When we came, when my friends, my Swiss friends, we talk about when we meet each other, the American food was very minimal as a good food. And the bread, we could not understand the bread, how horrible the Wonder Bread was. And we still talk about Wonder Bread. And we have an incredible good bakery in Virginia, a Swiss baker. And when we get together, we get this wonderful, wonderful bread. And it makes us feel so good.
Wow. Okay. Well, thank you so much. I cannot imagine saving Swiss chocolates from Christmas to Easter.
Well, it's not hot there in the winter.
That would not have been me. They would be all gone. Well, thank you very much, Maya.
Okay.
And next we have Diana, who is going to talk about the food of Lithuania.
Well, hello. I've lived in the United States I was born in Richmond, Virginia, and I've lived in Tacoma Park, Maryland for 40 years. And I'm the first person in my family to be born in the United States. My parents came from Lithuania after World War II. And Christmas Eve is so incredibly special for all Lithuanians. We have to have a meatless meal. The house has to be cleaned, has to be spotless. You have to set a beautiful table, and there have to be 12 dishes on the table. That can either be for the 12 apostles, or if you don't believe in God, it can be for the 12 months of the year, but there have to be 12 dishes, and they can't have any meat in them. And that may sound not very good to some people, but there's a lot you can do with mushroom and herring. If you don't like mushroom and herring, I don't think you're Lithuanian. But anyway, what I think the genesis of this sort of meal is that you make it from what is available in the dead of winter. So what is available? You've got cabbage, you've got beets, you've got onions, you've got barley or bulgur wheat, you've got a lot of dried fish. You also have beans, you also have dried fruits. So you can make a really, really tasty meal from these elements. And there's usually one main fish dish. People do marinades, people will do baked fish. But that's what they used to do in the traditional times. My mother would make lobster. I mean, it was, lobster, shrimp, whatever, it was still not meat, but it was kind of very fancy. But the thing is, as long as you didn't have meat, you were okay. Now, what's interesting is the way that they set the table. They always would put, and I just have some crumbs here, they would put some long sheets of straw underneath the tablecloth to remind you that Christ was born in a manger. And then at the end, there's a game that you play where whoever pulls the longest piece of wheat out from under the table will live the longest. And there's other games like that. But I wanted to say also that we start out the meal, though, in a very solemn way. Everybody gets or finds on their plate what's called a plotkale. And I know whoever's following me who's from Poland is going to say, we do the same thing. But anyway, everyone gets one of these. And the host breaks off a piece, takes it, and says just a blessing. And then everybody in the family goes to each other and breaks off a piece and wishes them a Merry Christmas, a happy, for a good year. So that's a very beautiful tradition. And then we sit down and we'll have various dishes made of what we call vinaigrettes. I made this myself today. It's very, very easy. It's a Granny Smith apple, a can of garbanzo beans, a can of pickled beets, and some herring chopped up. You can get it. I just got mine from the grocery store that was already in a jar. It's actually really delicious. And then we also make a lot of other like mixtures of various vegetables. Let me just get something for you here. So you can put together these, I think today would be called salsas. You put together some peas, some potatoes, some onions. I could add some mushrooms and then maybe some cucumber and mix that up with mayonnaise and sour cream. There's mayonnaise and sour cream for everything. Now going on to the what we have for dessert, there's this, we love cranberry kissel. So you make that and get rid of all the peels, and that's a delicious meal. I didn't like it. I would cry. I would trade my sister Christmas presents if she would eat mine because I didn't want it. We call it fried food compote. Also, we have something called poppy seed milk. If you grind up poppy seeds in your blender, you make milk out of them. And now that we can make milk out of almonds and so forth, it doesn't seem so strange, but there are these little biscuits we put into them and drink them. And these are all things. What's interesting is my children are really into it, and people who have come to our house and are not Lithuanian, they'll say like, just make that weird food for us because it is so weird. And they enjoy the ritual of it. And even though the taste is not, poppy seed doesn't have much of a taste, but whatever, it's a very enjoyable way and a very interesting way to spend New Year's Eve. So that's that. Oh, just a little bit, hold on. These are Christmas ornaments made from real straw. And then there's an American take on them, which is soda straws.
Oh,
So we have a lot of these decorations hanging around. I'm sorry, I hope I didn't take up too much time.
thank you so much. Did you make those ornaments?
I didn't. No, a friend of mine made them. I have made them before. They're really labor intensive, but it's really fun. You can't believe you can do something like this, but you can.
Well, thank you so much for sharing and the crossover between Lithuania and Poland. is really interesting.
I've
And
even got gefilte fish here.
oh my gosh,
Yes.
that's Lithuanian. And
I
it's
mean, we all eat a lot of the same.
Ashkenazi Jewish.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, that is great. Thank you so much for sharing. It was really, really interesting. And next we're going to go to Georgia, the country of Georgia. And Maya Hall, who is a caterer, is going to talk to us about Georgian food. Thank you, Maya.
You're welcome. My pleasure. Hi, everybody. And thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Carol, and everybody having me in your panel, and really appreciate. So just I will introduce myself. I'm Maya. Maya Hall is my husband's name, Hall, but my name is Bachutashvili. It's a little bit too long and then difficult to pronounce for Americans. But when I got married with him, I got his name. It's short and fun to use it. Anyways, I'm a chef and the owner of Georgian Feast, and I'm a professional musician. So as I mentioned before, I'm a singer, I'm a piano player, I'm a full musician. And in Canada, by the way, I recorded a little mini cassette. That time it was cassettes, recorded cassette with Georgian songs, and I was selling them in Canada. And then my husband, Dennis, moved into the CD. So I have that. They are very old, but that's that's okay. So anyways, when we are talking about Georgian traditions, like a culinary traditions, okay, we're talking about wine, Georgian wine, khachapuri, which is the cheese bread. Can you see it?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. And also, we're talking about, this is the Khali, which is the all different kinds of, this is particular, is an eggplant with walnut paste. This is beets with walnut paste. And this is the spinach with walnut paste. These are mainly the appetizers to start the table or party or kind of thing. And another thing, these are chinkalis. Can you see well? I'm not so sure.
Yes, yes, very well.
So inside is a soup dumplings. So dough, and inside is the meat, has the juice in it. And then when you eat, you have to bite. Then this is raw right now, but frozen. You have to bite, drink the juice out of it, then eat whole thing. And you have to eat with hand, only with hand. You cannot use fork or knife when you are eating this. But the Christmas traditions, these are also antis. We put the wine in here and then drinking. When we have big, and also we have very big, like a 1, 2 liter, 3 liter one, and then one person can drink that long, and then a lot of yeah, a lot of the wine. So, and then this is another clay, well, cup, glass. It's not a glass, of course. It's we are drinking also wine out of it, and it's quite healthy because it's the clay. Now, another tradition, this all we are using at the table always. And also very important is a guest. When the guest is coming, we always have food for guests. And then Georgian tradition for Christmas, we having turkey, and my Christmas is on January 7th. So there is of course, New Year we're celebrating, but again, with the fast, because we are not eating meat. Yeah, it's a meatless. We started already fasting right now until January 7th. And then we have meatless New Year, but that's perfect. That's fine. And in January 7th, so we cook turkey in walnut sauce. Oh my God, it's so delicious. And we have lots of garlic in there, and then spices. Also, of course, all these things which I showed you, appetizers, not khinkali though, not soup dumplings. That's you have to make together with other people, which will be good. So because it's the labor consuming, so it's very difficult to make these khingalis. And it's also another tradition. We are making oh yeah, sure, please, Helen. So, and then we also make gozinati. Now, what is gozinati? Walnuts and honey. We're making little confectionery with that, and then it's very healthy. And what I do remember in my childhood, my mother used to wake us up January 7th and bringing these sweet things in the morning in bed and then feeding us with this gozinati because it's sweet. And then so to have sweet whole year and life. And also another thing is like a churchela. Churchela is also, we don't have churchela here, yeah. So churchela is also like walnuts on a needle like this long. And then we're making special grape juice in October after harvest of grapes to make wine. And then so we mixing with that grape juice, and then it's coming out something very, they call Georgian sneakers. So yeah, I guess that's it. Oh yeah, and then at the table, doesn't matter is the 2 people or 100 people, we always have tamada. Tamada is a toastmaster, and he's organizing like and then he's talking about the toasts, and we must do this. Doesn't matter again if 5 people or 300 people. So starting toast with peace in the world. Then after everybody drinks that wine, and then also next toast goes like a health to everyone. Next toast goes to, and we also of course definitely must dance and sing. So it's having fun. Sometimes goes like a 2-3 days this fun, and then but next day always having party big one. Next day you have to have tripe soup to get out of hangover. And this tripe soup made from intestine, right? Then it's intestine of cow, and then what do you call them? Cow legs. It's very delicious and very healthy. It's just that, and water, of course, is boiling overnight, cooking with lots of garlic in it, because we eat lots of garlic, lots of walnuts, lots of fresh herbs. So I guess I didn't forget anything. Yeah. So, and yeah, tripe soup is really good.
Maya, you
Very much
talked
for listening.
you talked about one of the things being labor intensive, but it seems like everything you showed us is extremely labor intensive.
It is, but I'm doing with pleasure.
Well, thank you so much for your sharing. Your catering service sounds absolutely fantastic. Do you want to tell us how we can contact you and the catering service?
Oh yeah, sure. It's just a GeorgianFeast.com.
GeorgianFeast.com.
yeah, that's my website. And then also like I'm in the stores too. And then the little balls I showed you, it's not in the balls, it's just a spreads like a the spreads, yeah, the spinach with walnut, beets with walnut, and eggplant with walnut spread selling at the stores.
Okay.
And it's really delicious. And sometimes you can hear at the markets on the plaza and at the civic building. She was just there this Saturday with the Empowerment Women's International, but she sold out, so she left early.
Yeah. That's true.
Yes, they're delicious, Maya. So good to see you. Thank you. and
Yeah,
happy
thank you,
holidays.
thank you, thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. And next we have Helen.
Stacy, yeah, Stacy has to go on stage. So
Ah.
we have to just, she was scheduled first, but
Right.
is a blues artist. And so she's representing Germany here. Sorry about that. I messaged you, but okay.
It's okay. Hey, how you guys? I'm so sorry. My show got moved to Thursday. It was Wednesday. And before I committed to this, I was so excited to talk about my country is Germany. Everybody can hear me, right?
Yes.
Okay, so my country is Germany. And I know that might seem a little peculiar, considering I don't look like a German. But I grew up in Germany, mostly in Baden-Württemberg in the south, and my dad was in the army. So, but before my parents met in school, both of my parents, my biological mother is not German, but my dad went to Vietnam, came back, and then married my mom, and then they went to Germany. So I was over there as an infant. So I learned German and English at the same time. And I don't know what made my parents let me have the decision of going to German kindergarten, but they allowed me to go to German kindergarten. So I literally grew up as a little Black German in school, which was it wasn't anything bad. You know, people are asking me about, did I ever experience any racism? I didn't. I was more like a unicorn. Back then, you know, there was no internet. There was none of that. And a lot of kids they know, you know, a lot of them hadn't seen a person that looked like me. They heard of Africana, but I'm not African, I'm American. So, so I'm going to share with you what we eat at Christmas time. And we always, my Oma and Opa lived in, I'm back up. I have my little cue cards because, you know, I was there all my life. So when my parents were there, we did everything German. But the funniest thing is when my parents got divorced and my father moved back to Germany, my dad married a German. So again, German was our household. So I had an Oma and I had an Opa in Eidsfeld, Germany. So, and I was the only child. My parents, my dad and my stepmother hadn't had kids yet. So I would help out making the glühwein. And if you know about the glühwein, you know, it's just red wine with fruits in it. It's like a wine to the second power, but you drink it warm. And if you know anything about Germany, you know, things, I don't know how it is now because I haven't been back in a couple of years, but things shut down early on Saturday and nothing's open on Sunday. And so you would go to the market, the holiday market, and you would get your glühwein. That would keep you warm because you'd walk around and, you know, you have your dinner early and then you'd walk around with your glühwein and you would be toasty and feeling really good. So we would make our glühwein in a crock pot because you don't boil the glühwein because you don't want to boil off the alcohol. But the funniest thing is drinking this, I've been drinking wine since a kid. And so because of that, I got into this business. I also sell wine now. So I started selling wine like in 2017. So I was like, I'm a wino, so I might as well. I'm an old school wino, so I might as well sell wine. So we made glue wine with cinnamon sticks and orange peel. You have the zest of the orange in it. Sometimes we put slices of orange in it. We have the star anise, and sometimes we put a little bit of Grand Marnier in there, you know. Um, then we had cloves, and we would just put it in the crock pot and let it simmer and simmer and simmer and simmer. And it was just so good. But also during the holidays, we have Stollen. Stollen is like a fruit cake. It's very, very dense, and it has powdered sugar on it. Now I can go to Aldi and Lidl and get this, you know. They have the marzipan Stollen. You have the Kirschen Stollen. Kirschen is actually a cherry, but it's a fruit cake. But to me, it tastes better than, you know, the other fruit cake. And you slice it. Sometimes you put a little butter on it, and you have it with your tea or coffee in the morning, leading up to Christmas. But what I do to preserve it, like I forget who said it, that they preserved their chocolate from Christmas to Easter. We did the same thing with Stollen. We put it in the freezer. I do that now. I stock up at Aldi, and I put it in the freezer so that I can have it any time of the year when I want it. So, and then we had Lebkuchen. Lebkuchen is gingerbread, and I would help with making the gingerbread. And my Oma used to we also for dinner, actually we had goose. Now we had either goose or duck, and my Oma and Opa would make the duck, you know, like rotisserie style in America, but we also would put it sometimes in a Dutch oven. It's in the clay pot type thing. And sometimes we would have it like that. Then other times we would have, of course, my Opa would put a pig on a spit, and it would turn like all day. It would turn all day. And I thought that was the weirdest thing. Like, the funniest thing is now I don't eat pig. I don't eat beef now because I had so much of it as a child. Like Germany, we ate everything from the rooter to the tutor. We have pig ears. You have everything pig. And so I don't want it now. I don't want to. I've eaten pig all kinds of ways. I've even had tripe. When she was talking about the tripe, we had tripe, and we put it in some kind of tomato base in a soup of some sort. It was interesting. But yeah, I don't eat any of that now, but I've had tongue. I've had cow tongue. We would slice it, and we would have it at dinner as well. So I'm trying to look at my other notes. I had Stollen. Oh, so now this Thanksgiving, my dad let me cook our dinner for Thanksgiving, and my stepmom, she passed 2 years ago, unfortunately. But I know how to cook German food. So the funniest thing is just my dad and I. So I made Cornish hens, but I made it the way we do. So when you do the goose, like or the duck, not smoked, you stuff it with apples and oranges and things like that. So what I did with the and I actually made a reel on it. I put it on Facebook. I put grapes, and I put red onions, and I put apples cut up, and I stuffed it in there with the garlic. And that's what my little but we don't eat it. That's just for the seasoning. Okay, we don't eat that. So that's just for the seasoning. So I made little Cornish hens, German style, for Thanksgiving. So we never even ate any of the goose that my dad made this year. So I'm sure he put it in the freezer. But I'll do that again for Christmas. And we also have rotkohl. Rotkohl is the red cabbage. It's like, some people like sauerkraut. In my family, we like the rotkohl better. so I had rotkohl, and I had and of course in Germany, if you know about German, everything is Kartoffel, which is potato. So of course we had Kartoffel, and we have it, you know, you just boil it, or sometimes we put it in the clay pot with the food as well, with the onions and the karoten, and we cook it like that together. So so for our tradition, we also celebrate on Christmas Eve. I don't do it as much anymore because I'm here, but we used to go to church, and when we came back, then we would unwrap the presents. And of course, in school, in kindergarten, what we would do is we put our shoes out in the back, in the outside of the classroom, and we would take our nap. And then when we wake up, they never gave us coal or switches, but if you were bad, that's what you were supposed to get. We always got candy in our shoes, but if you were a bad child, you were threatened, that you weren't going to get anything. You were going to be threatened about getting coal and rocks in your shoes. And if you came home from school with that, then, because you would, if you were a bad kid at school, you would never tell your parents that, right? So if you came home with those type of things in your shoes, you're like, well, what did you get from school? Oh, you're supposed to show off what you got. But if you didn't get anything good, that means you were bad in school. So I never got any of that stuff. I always got candy. And I don't even remember if anybody actually got sticks, switches and stuff, but we were threatened with that. And that's how you got told on, if you got switches and stuff in your shoes. So also when I was in Germany, in school, we also learn religion in class. But in America, I'm a United Methodist. So in Germany, and I didn't know what this was until I got older, I was Evangelisch. I didn't know what that was. I just knew I wasn't Katholisch. I knew I wasn't Katholisch. So in Germany, I'm Evangelisch. In America, I am United Methodist. So I've done confirmation Evangelisch in Germany, and I've done confirmation here in America. So so when I came back to the States, of course, I brought a lot of those traditions with me. And my grandmother, my American grandmother, when I would come home for a holiday here, she would have me sing O Tannenbaum and Stille Nacht every daggone holiday. And I'm like, Grandma, nobody wants to hear that. They don't understand what I'm saying. She's like, well, I'm the only one with a granddaughter that can speak German, that can sing in German. So daggone it, you're gonna sing in German. So every Christmas in Maryland, I had to sing Stille Nacht, Heilige Nacht, Alles schläft langsam. And I'm like, oh my, no, Grandma, nobody knows that. So, but she didn't care. She wanted me to sing it. So I did what my grandma told me to do. So for a while, my Oma in Artsfeld, she would send me care packages.
We lost you, Stacy.
Oh,
The sound went off.
You're cutting out, Stacy.
Yeah, I know. Somebody tried to call me. I know. Somebody tried to call me. I had to decline it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well,
so I forgot what I was saying, but that's pretty much
Well, Stacy, you have shared so many wonderful memories of your childhood and food and drink.
Yes.
Of your childhood in Germany.
Yes.
I have tasted group, and I would love to taste yours sometime. And I know you have to go on stage right now. Stacy,
not right now. I actually, they're going to actually play for now. I'm actually directly in front of. I got a good parking spot directly in front of the thing, and I told them to go ahead and start. So I'm not going to dip off just yet.
Okay, so you can still join us. I'm going to be over your place for some Hügwein, or I forget what it's called in German, but
Glühwein.
Yeah.
So, folks, you might want to look up the Stacy Brooks Band.
Stacy.
She is an absolutely wonderful performer. I've heard her many, many times. So thank you very much, Stacy, for sharing. And next,
thank you so much.
We are going from Germany back to Georgia to listen to what Helen Burns has to share about Georgian food. Take it away, Helen.
So this is going to be about Georgia and crossing over back into the Caucasus region. I know there's at least one other person talking about that from the perspective of an American tourist. And just to say, if I log off and abruptly end, it's because I'm supposed to have guests over at like right now. But as in the fashion of most people I know, they're late, so that's good. So I'll just keep talking until I'm finished or they arrive, whichever happens first. So this will be a little bit different. Maya really said the best things to be had, and I just invited myself over her place to eat some of her food. I was joking, but then when it's a Georgian person, very often it's not a joke. They'll be like, no, come over. So that's kind of what I'm getting at. And the first, I guess we're not really sharing pictures virtually. We're doing it by the phone. But so I'm an American and I lived in Georgia for half the year in 2014. And as any person from the US or from the West who visits Georgia knows, you probably fly through Istanbul and you probably fly into Tbilisi at 4 in the morning. And so I'd gotten there to Tbilisi the first time, and I'd also visited twice since then after that. I keep going back like every 4 years. And so I get to the host mother's house. I was doing an internship and I was staying with a host family. So it was like 5 in the morning. I had not slept in 2 days. I was dirty. I was disgusting. All I really wanted to do was take a shower. But my host mother, Manana Gilashvili, said, "Oh no, you're gonna eat." And so she makes me this, which is like, I guess like a breakfast hachapuri. You can't really see the quality there, but it's one of the variants of hachapuri, which is the cheese bread. And so yeah, this is my breakfast or dinner, or I don't know what meal you call it when you haven't slept in 2 days. And then she let me take a shower, but she insisted that I sit down and eat. So that was kind of my introduction to what is it like to receive Georgian hospitality. And so I visit her again in 2019. And this was my 5 a.m. breakfast. You can see that. It's another piece of the hachapuri. We have a salad here, and we have badrijani, which is the eggplant and walnut sauce. You have like the walnut stuff wrapped in the eggplant, and then you have like another green salad variant of it with the red pomegranate seed. Another thing too is like, I don't even recall all the different variants of hachapuri. There's imeruli, which is like the like a closed hachapuri with stuff in the middle. But my favorite was Ajarian hachapuri or ajaruli, which looks like this magnet here. I don't have the real thing, I have a magnet. So it's shaped like a boat, and it has some cheese in the middle and an egg and like half a stick of butter. If you're like keto or low carb or whatever, it is not for you. One time I was able to eat the entire thing. That's because I had just finished a 10-mile run in the mountains. People thought I was crazy, but I got to finish an entire thing of hachapuri, and without stopping in one sitting. It was very impressive. Some other facts I learned about the food the first time I was there. First of all, restaurants were very inexpensive. If you can see this here, you have the hinkali, you have some of the eggplant salads, and you have some wine. I recall, and this was in 2019, I recall the entire meal cost about $6 US, which was amazing. But other things that I remember was that we have like the traditions that they have a supra, which is like a big dinner if you're lucky, or basically if you know anyone in Georgia, they'll invite you over to their house or maybe to a restaurant and have all their friends, and there's this big spread, and they have wine, and they say the toast that can last a long time, and many courses, and it's a whole lot of fun. And as an American, I really liked the social culture. I really liked how food was never just a means to an end. It's not just, oh, you sit down to eat something and then you go about your business. Food was an event. And I liked how even during the work days, and even with people from work, from the internship I worked at, like if you reserve at a restaurant, they're not going to kick you out in 90 minutes. They're not going to make reservations after the fact. They're going to, it's yours for the night. It's a culture. And I guess I have 2 more minutes. Now kind of expanding elsewhere in the region, I have purchased here from Trader Joe's in Silver Spring, ajika. And ajika, you can think of as the Old Bay of the Caucasus. It's everywhere, and it goes on everything. Well, maybe it doesn't actually go on everything, but I put it on everything. You can have it as a spice. In some regions, it's like a paste, or it's like more of a sauce. I've had it in various forms. And like I put it once on hachapuri and people thought I was crazy. I guess you're not supposed to do that, but you put it on meats, mostly meats. But it can be spicy, it can be mild. Again, it can be a dry powder spice, or it can be like a sauce or a paste. And I've had it in other regions of Georgia, including Abkhazia, which was occupied by Russia in 2008. That adventure was a whole nother story, but they had food that was somewhat similar to Tbilisi, Georgian food, like Kartvelian food, but other of it was different. It was like more spicy, but they also had it in the North Caucasus. And real briefly, I lived in the North Caucasus in 2012, 2013. And that was a whole different world, but culinarily, it was a little bit similar. And the last picture I want to show you before I go and check to make sure everything's ready for company I'm having is a shashlik, or in Georgian, msvadi, but every language has its own word for it, but it's like meat on a stick. And so here is pictures of handsome Georgian men making shashlik in the mountains on a camping trip. It's not always made like on sticks in a literal fire, but very often it is. It's just like meat, stick, fire, and sometimes some salt. And that is, yeah, they have it in Estonian. It's kind of a dish throughout the former Soviet space or broader Eurasia, and every kind of other language has its own word for it. In Chechen, it's called zhizhig, which means meat. Zhizhig golnish is kind of Chechnya's version of like a meat dumpling. I've stumbled upon a Chechen restaurant once. That was really interesting. And so, yeah, the North Caucasus definitely has some similarities, but also some differences. And here, if you could see, it's in Russian, but it's an advertisement for delivery Ossetian pies. And this was like 10, 12 years ago, before we had DoorDash or Grubhub or anything. It was like a special delivery services. I think it was in Kabardino-Balkaria, one of the republics of the North Caucasus. And they had delivery Ossetian pies, which are like, you can compare them with hachapuri. They're not exactly the same, but it is kind of the same idea. It's like a breaded like pie thing with meat and cheese in the middle. Again, not for like keto friendly, low carb diets at all whatsoever. And I think that's it. Oh no, back to Georgia. I have to show this picture. When you're hiking in the Kazbek region, which is the highest mountain in Georgia, Kazdegi. Last time I was there, this store unfortunately was closed, but my friends and I, American and European friends, we got a kick out of this store that was in the little village, Stepansminda, outside of Mount Kazbek, called Market Google. I don't know if you can see it. Yeah, so they just call it Market Google. It's just like your standard frozen pelmeni or frozen khinkali and wine store, and they just called it Google. And I guess like Google, the parent alphabet company, didn't really care that some little store in the mountains took its brand, but it was good. It was definitely good for a late night run after a late night wine run after a long day of hiking.
Well, thank you so much, Helen, for sharing so much about the food of Georgia. The breakfasts sounded very interesting. That must have taken some getting used to. And I know that you have friends coming over. Are you cooking Georgian food for them?
No, and unfortunately, we're having beer, and not even like German beer. We're having Maryland beer. So, but yeah, these friends came in from Portugal, and they at the last minute said we're coming over here at 8. So, but it's 8:12, and they're notoriously late. So I'm gonna just keep listening until they show up.
Okay. Well, somebody asked in the chat if you have been to the Georgian restaurant Supra in DC.
Yes.
Okay. And is it good?
I mean, by American standards, 10 out of 10. By like comparing it with actual Georgian food, I'd say 7 out of 10, 6 out of 10.
Okay.
Pretty good. It's pretty good, but nothing's gonna beat actual Georgian food.
Right. Right. Well, thank you so much for sharing.
Does Maya
and taking us
agree
to
with
Georgia.
that? Does Maya agree with that assessment? She may know. Okay.
The thing is, yeah, Supra is good. It's a little bit more fusion in there. But again, it's Georgian not cooking there. So it's for again, Americans who haven't been in Georgia, then it will be like a perfect. But who've been in Georgia and came back, actually the Jonathan Nelms, the owner, was my client before he opened the restaurant.
So for real Georgian food, we have to go to georgiafeast.com and hire Maya Hall to be our cook.
Authentic food, yes. Then in that case, yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Helen.
Thank you. And next, we are going to Greece to hear from Rita Kanidis. Rita,
hi.
you're on.
Hey, hi, everybody. I am having such fun here tonight. Oh my goodness. This is just, what a treat. So I came with my family from Greece when I was 12. I'm from the island of Rhodes, which is in southern Greece, right next to Turkey. And that's significant because as other people have hinted, suggested, there's so many overlaps and similarities between cuisines in the Middle East and Turkey and Greece and Albania. I mean, Iran, Syria, very, very similar cuisines. So I remember when I first, there wasn't much international cooking in restaurants in Greece when I was growing up there. And so it wasn't for, many, many years until I discovered that, what I thought was Greek food was being claimed by other cultures too, by other nationalities too. And I got so confused. And I'm like, well, what's Greek food then? And I still don't know. I have to tell you, I still don't know. Because part of the reason is that culture moves, especially in Southern Europe, Italy, and with Greece in particular, Greece was occupied by Turkey for 500 years, and that ended in 1821, which is pretty recent. So with Rhodes in particular, but other islands in that area also, there's so much of our cuisine that's been impacted by that. In the mainland, it might be different, but we use Turkish words. I remember growing up, waking up for my afternoon nap, the siesta, and hearing the minarets, the calls to prayer. And I'm like, I feel like that's my culture, honestly. And it isn't, And Greeks are very sort of stubborn about, yes, we're Orthodox, So religion is a really, really important thing to Greeks, I think, culturally and politically, as well as spiritually. So Easter is a very big deal. Oh, and after Turkey left, of course, Italy moved in to Rhodes. And so we picked up Italian dishes, Italian words. Rhodes happens to be one of two islands on the Aegean where we use our Greek has been impacted by the Italian occupation. And so we say, instead of, in Athens, they'll say movie theater, in Rhodes we'll say cinema. Cinema. So, I mean, we've got all of this stuff going on. We're not a pure culture. So that's something to always keep in mind. But Easter is extremely important to Greeks, if not for religious reasons, then for cultural reasons, because we hadn't been able to practice our Greek Orthodox religion for, centuries. So culturally, Easter is extremely important, not because now we make a big fuss over it. But we do a lot at Easter time that's really interesting, and it's very communal. It's very, very communal. So whether you live in a city or in a village, on Friday, Good Friday, the entire church and the congregation will leave the church with candles and icons and the priest leading the way, and walk through. I remember we did this in New York City, Manhattan. We would walk to the temple nearby. We would walk to the synagogue. We would walk to the Catholic churches, and we would stop in front of each church, each spiritual place, and we would chant. We would bless them. And in villages, the entire village will follow the priest, in the pitch dark, and do this. So it's all very very ritualistic, of course. We don't eat very much we fast. I mean, I'm not a religious person. My family was not religious. But we don't eat. We start with cutting off meat, and then you cut out dairy, and then you cut out oil, and then there's very little that you can eat. By the time Easter comes, which is the Saturday night of Holy Week, then you have a feast. Then we come back. So what happens in church at that time is the church is pitch black, dark. The priest with his candle, some of you might be familiar, sings a song that says, "Come and get the light." And it's a beautiful chant. And everyone in church gets the light with their own candle from the priest and passes it back, and the whole church lights up. It becomes so bright. It's a beautiful, beautiful moment. You go home from that really, really hungry because it's like midnight by now. And there's a special soup that awaits us, and that is called mayiritsa. And mayiritsa is, it's an acquired thing. People don't warm up to it sometimes because it's got intestines in it and all the organs cut up in it, lots of dill, lots of greens, and very little else. It's just these organ meats. And it's a very hearty soup. And the other thing that happens, of course, is you crack the eggs, but that's the next day. That's on the Sunday. So the next day, of course, you have the lamb on a spit, right? I mean, and again, it's not a nuclear family thing. It's a much bigger thing. It's many families will come together. The village will come all together and do a couple of lambs, and everybody basically feasts. It's a huge, huge feast, and it's a beautiful thing. And there's music, and there's dancing, and it's a very festive, happy occasion. One of the dishes that comes from that lamb meal is called kokoretsi, and I know it exists in Turkey also. And I don't even know if the word kokoretsi is Greek. It probably isn't. It's probably Turkish. I know that in Turkish there is kokoreç, they say, and it's the same dish. So you take a spit and you put a lot of, again, organ meats in there, liver and blah, 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 everything. And you wrap it up with the intestines. Lots of spices, lots of herbs, and you put it on the spit and you barbecue it, and it's amazing. And it's so hard to find, so hard to find in the United States. I've looked and looked. Only in Astoria, in New York, can you get it. So people are very attached to these traditions. This is what they do all the time. So that's Easter for us. And one of the sweets that we make, you know, Greeks don't make very many sweets, not very often anyway. And everybody thinks baklava is in our houses all the time, but it isn't. You know, it's just once or twice a year. But for Easter, we make these sort of butter cookies. They're braided, they're very small, and you dip them in your coffee. And that's the big thing. Oh, and something that looks a lot like challah bread. It's called shureki. And it tastes exactly, you have it too. So again, you know, there were so many Jews on my island in Rhodes, so many. There's a Jewish quarter in the old city. There's a Jewish synagogue. There's the Square of the Martyrs. I mean, lots and lots of Jewish history. In fact, my dad, who lived was a child during the Second World War, he said, we all remember when they came and took the Jewish people. And it just cleared out, you know. I can't see a World War II movie today because it's like really traumatic. I grew up on those stories. Everybody grows up on those stories. You know, history is very much alive for us, even the 500 years of Turks, which was a while ago. But one other, you know, when I tell people that I'm Greek, they mention feta cheese, Kalamata olives. This is what they say all the time. Oh, I love Kalamata olives. And it's like, and what am I supposed to do with this information? I love moussaka, you know, all this stuff. And, but I think it's important to just throw another bit into the mix here, which is for Greeks, food is very, very simple. It's very much vegetable-based, legume-based. Meat is not a regular thing. String beans actually could be a main course, you know, because there's protein in there, there's tomato, and there's always tons of olive oil, which is so filling. You know, when you eat that much fat, you don't get hungry very much, which is, you know, a lesson we need to learn, I think. But yes, it's a fairly light diet. Of course, there's goat milk feta, but these days, because there's transport is easy, you know, you go to a grocery store or supermarket in Greece now, in Rhodes, and you will see 20 different kinds of feta. And they're from this island, and they're from Crete, and they're from this other place, and each one is different, you know, and there's just so much variety. And last summer I was in Greece. I went to the village. I'm in my grandmother's village, and I went to the village to the grocery store, and I said, "Do you have any feta or mizithra, which is like a lighter, less salty cheese?" And the woman said, "Yes, I do, but it's my own." She apologized that she was selling cheese that she made herself using the goat milk that she got from animals. And I'm like, it's the best, most wonderful gift. Don't apologize. And so she made cheese for me the whole time I was there. She just kept it coming, and it was just so sweet. The other thing is, because the diet is so simple, meze is a very big deal. And meze is small tapas, right? Plates, small plates full of different things. And we value variety. We can't always have it because as a nation, we've never had that kind of abundance. You know, it's been a poor country forever and ever. It's very poor again. But so if you have company over, you put out meze. You put out different flavors, different kinds of foods. Today, if you go to a traditional tavern on any of the islands or on the mainland, you just sit and they bring you whatever the meze is for the day. You don't order. They count how many people they have to feed. And whatever's cooking in the kitchen that evening is what you get. You know, and it'll be fried potatoes, some meatballs, always the Greek salad, you know, the hefty salad, lots of really good bread, and it's just perfect. It's just perfect. Whatever they've got is great.
It
and
sounds perfect, Rita.
simple, very
And what
nice and
sounds
simple.
absolutely perfect is how the communities come together
Yeah.
to celebrate holidays and eat together. It
Thanks
sounds,
for giving me the opportunity to share
it
this.
sounds
Thank you.
amazing. Thank you so much, Rita, for sharing.
Sure.
Thank
And
you, Rita. It was great.
we are going from the islands of Greece to the mountains and fjords of Norway with Marta Brendan. Thank you, Marta. Marta, you're muted.
Still,
There.
yeah.
That better?
Yes, thank you.
My story is going to be quite a bit different because I am third generation immigrant. My grandparents were born in, one grandmother in Sweden, and the rest of my grandparents were born in Norway. But I have one grandfather that was born in near Brookings, South Dakota. Otherwise, I'm very close to, I am that far away. Now I've lived in other countries. I lived in Vietnam for 2 years during the war as a social worker. And I lived in Nigeria when my husband was working, and I stayed at home with my young daughter, with our young daughter. So I've had other opportunities. I'm totally fascinated with everything that is being shared tonight. I am just blown away. And thank you so much, Lisa and Carol, for making this opportunity for us to share. However, that doesn't mean that I have become totally American. Not at all. We have, I grew up with my family getting together, and since we're focusing a lot on the holiday, I'll talk a little bit about our Christmas meal, which generally we're Christmas Eve celebration, and Christmas Day is quite quiet. But I would fix, first of all, for the main course, I would fix lutefisk, which is a cod, and it is dried in the sun in the summer months. Great fillets of lutefisk are laid out on racks, wooden racks. And then in the winter, it's reconstituted and made into something that didn't appeal to me, a gelatinous kind of cod, and we would serve it in butter. Then I would make Swedish meatballs because that was our favorite. And if you think IKEA has Swedish meatballs, you must try mine. I hope I can make some sometime because they are quite a bit different from the IKEA meatballs. But then our bread, we are getting together with my son and his family in a couple of days, and the request was to have our lefse. This is, in California, it was called the Norwegian tortilla, but it is made from potato and flour and some fat, and then often served as bread, although my family would always serve it with some butter and some sugar and have it with coffee. I couldn't get that made, although I do have all the equipment. Here is the griddle. We bake it on a griddle, and the left side is rolled, and it is rolled out very, very thin with this grooved rolling pin, and then baked on the griddle until it gets, I thought today, it's like my skin. It's flecked with brown. So that was my son's request. So how did I get this lefse? Amazon. I couldn't believe it. I have never bought it on Amazon before, but this year I needed it in a few days, and Amazon had it from southern Minnesota and could get it to us very quickly. So the rest of our meal would be red cabbage. There are so many things that are crossovers between the different countries. But of course, remember, Christmas in Norway and Sweden would be very dark. It is the land of the midnight sun, and in the summer, but in the winter, it is dark for hours and hours and hours and very little sunshine. So Christmas was a very important time for building up everyone's spirits to get through the rest of the winter. We would have a wine. It's called glögg, and it is made with a lot of fruit and spices. And now, how would cardamom and cinnamon and nutmeg get to Norway? Well, we had to thank those Vikings that went out marauding in all the southern, Middle Eastern, and British Isles and so on, and bringing back the wonderful spices. And we have a Christmas bread. It is a little bit more yeast and flour than the stollen that we heard talked about. And then there's a host of Swedish and Norwegian goodies like krumkaka, a very crisp roll, and sandbakels and fattigmann and all kinds of things. But basically, it's flour and eggs or sugar and then cooked, baked, or fried, and warms the soul. There's many more things I could tell you, but there's so many other traditions that are yet to be told about. So I'll yield my time, and I want to thank you very much for bringing us all together and letting me share about our Norwegian holidays. Thank you.
Well, Marta, thank God for Amazon. I didn't think I would say that, but wow.
Exactly.
and to have, you know, the oven thing that you use and the grooved rolling pin and getting it for your son who requested it, absolutely amazing.
It's fun.
And I've had the dried fish dish you talked about because I was in Norway last summer.
Oh,
and
really?
It's very good.
Oh, well, good for you. Sometimes it's creamed, but and every family has a little bit different tradition. Anyway, thank you, Carol and Lisa, for everything you've been doing. Take care.
Okay, thank you,
Okay,
Martha.
thank you.
Tack så mycket. And I was going
Yeah,
to
tack så
say,
mycket.
I was going to give a little plug to Carol's program that Carol is in our featured travel logs in next month, talking about her adventure going to Svalbard up in the Arctic of Norway. So that will be on the title of it.
January 19th.
Yeah, January 19th. And the title is Polar Bears, Ice Packs, and Calving Glaciers at 83 degrees north latitude with Carol Light.
And that talk will be about 2 or 3 weeks before I go back to Svalbard to experience the darkness that Marta just talked about.
And the amazing Aurora Borealis lights.
Right. Next, we have Betsy Platt, who I know as a singer and dancer, wonderful dancer, and a wonderful singer. And she's going to talk about the Caucasus area. So take it away, Betsy.
Actually, I might say something about the Caucasus, but we have so much expertise here on the screen that I'm going to make it very brief. But I want to thank you for including me in this talk. I have a little bit of a different take because I'm not representing one country, but I wanted to talk about, because there are so many things in common with all these cuisines, many of these cuisines. So I wanted to talk a little bit about traveling in some of these countries in Eastern Europe and the Caucasus as a vegetarian, and to also talk a little bit about the Jewish adaptations. So my story is I was born here and my mother was born here. My grandmother was from a town in Poland, and she came here when she was 12 years old. She was the daughter of a baker, and she herself was a brilliant baker. One of my favorite recipes to make of hers is her poppy seed rugelach. Rugelach is a pastry that's made with cream cheese and sour cream. It's so rich and tender. And make these little snail-like pastries. My grandmother's were so beautiful. Mine are a little rougher. But I just wanted to share one special thing that's in my family. Now, my grandmother was very interested in assimilating into her American life. And she also came from a place where the attitude toward food was that you wanted to make it be very refined. So her version of borscht, for instance, beet borscht, was a clear liquid. Chicken soup was clear, not a lot of stuff in it. And she made the finest noodles I've ever seen. I remember watching her make noodles. She would roll out the dough out and then roll it up. And then she would chop it with a knife, and the knife would go so quickly that you couldn't see it. It was a blur. And when she was finished, got to the other end of the roll, she would pick it up and it was like lace. It opened out into this beautiful lace that became her noodles. And I have such fond memories of that. But I used to ask her questions about her cooking, and she really did not like to look back. And she used to say, "Why are you asking me about all of these old-fashioned things? You're an old-fashioned person, but I'm a modern person." And she was right, because I've always I've always been interested in old traditions, and she was very forward-looking. So unfortunately, I did not learn a lot from my grandmother about old culinary or other customs. But because I had that interest, and my husband Jamie and I have traveled a lot in Eastern Europe, and I'm always looking for traditional dishes and other things. So wanted to talk about how people told us when we went on our first trip, that was to Bulgaria. And I'm not even going to try to talk about Bulgarian food because you have Tatiana Sarbinska here, who was the queen of that. But I will say that I was very pleasantly surprised because we were a little nervous. How are we going to eat? How are we going to survive? Everybody eats meat. But it's not really true. We had some wonderful vegetarian dishes in Bulgaria. I did find throughout Eastern Europe, it was a little easier if you talked about a fasting menu than being a vegetarian, because it was something that people could relate to, in a different, I know what fasting food is. It's without meat or dairy. It's basically a beautiful vegan menu. It's just, approached in a different way. So we ate a lot of shopska salata and but some beautiful vegetarian stews. Cheeses were beautiful, and bean soup. We ate very well in Bulgaria, and then we continued our journeys. I've been to Bosnia. I don't even want to give you a list of countries because I want to keep it quick. But I'll mention a few things. One thing I really loved about Bosnia was that it's right at the nexus of, the baking. The baking was what I loved. The desserts, let's be a little broader, because Bosnia has it all. They have the traditions of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. So beautiful torts and pastries and all kinds of things that you think of when you think of Austria and Hungary. But then they also have the Ottoman influence. So you'd have honey-soaked pastries like baklava, lokum, Turkish delight, and things like that. So if you really want to go and just take a dessert tour par excellence, I recommend Bosnia. I would for that. Let's see. Okay, Georgia. I really, I think Georgia's been covered so much, but the food is so wonderful. The food is so wonderful, and Maya has behind her a traditional tablecloth from the Georgian meal, and it really expresses the Georgian attitude towards hospitality and inclusion, and the you know, just the joy around being together with other people and food that is just so beautiful. I had to say something about that, you know, but Georgia could fill a whole program by itself easily. So I have to move. Yeah. Thank you. Another thing that we really loved in our travels was in Romania was the mamaliga. I'm a porridge lover. So in Georgia it's gomi, but in Romania they have a beautiful corn porridge with cheese that we loved very much. And let's see. I'm trying to sort of condense a lot of the notes that I had. Oh, okay. So the other thing I want to talk about that hasn't been talked about too much yet is spirits. Well, I guess we have talked about blue wine and things like that. But one of the things that I discovered in Serbia, but have found it in other countries since, is walnut liqueur. And now I make my own. So this is my Christmas season specialty. I like to give as gifts. I just forage baby walnuts in June, you know, the black walnut trees around our houses that have the great big green balls. So I gather them then. And traditionally in a lot of countries, it's gathered specifically on June 25th, which in many countries is St. George's Day. And so it's associated with that anyway. So you gather the walnuts, the little baby walnuts are still very soft in their shells. And in the Balkans and also in Georgia, they make a spoon sweet out of these little baby walnuts, which is really delicious. But the other thing you can do is just cut them in quarters and put them with sugar and some spices in an alcohol base. You can use vodka, or you can use the local liquor that's on offer, and just let it sit. Let it sit until November, and then you strain it and decant it, and you get this lovely walnut liqueur. And my friends in Serbia, where I first encountered it, would have a shot of this every morning for their health. I'm not sure exactly what it does for your health, but they seem very healthy, and they seem to enjoy that. So I just wanted to share that one little traditional thing that I really, I enjoy making every year. And I know that I have found that in some of Eastern Europe and in the Caucasus, they found evidence of sacred walnut groves, prehistoric walnut groves. So it's a very it's a very, it's an old and precious tradition that I'm still trying to learn about.
That really fits you very well, carrying on the traditions and actually passing it on to your friends as holiday gifts. Thank you so much for sharing. Next, we are going to England to hear Chef Beth Johannes, who is the owner of the Levin Slice Cafe, which is right nearby on Spring and Colesville. And Beth is going to talk about the food from England. Thank you, Beth.
Good evening, everyone. What a wonderful program. Thank you, Lisa and Carol. I'm honored to be here with you guys tonight, but I've lived in England for 10 years. I attended a culinary school. I also did my BA in management in England. I think food is the best way to mix with any kind of society. You learn the culture, you learn people's heart through food, I believe. So I think I was lucky to be able to cook with people and do that. My first experience in London, when I get to London within a month, my uncle invited me for lunch, Sunday lunch. And I showed up thinking that it's going to be some amazing Ethiopian food because I was homesick. I was just craving some injera and some, Ethiopian food. And I showed up and they had this glorious roast beef, roasted potato, Yorkshire pudding, and they, they did a wonderful job, but I was not impressed because I was expecting something else. I was so homesick, but I came to England after 10 years and my son was born in London. So I went back when he graduated high school, we went back to London again. And I was invited to a different house for lunch. And I was hoping and praying that it was going to be the Sunday roast. And it was. And almost everyone I know in England on Sunday, it's a very common tradition that they roast a big joint and then all the veggies that goes around it. And of course the Yorkshire pudding, it's a very wonderful food. But when I was there on a regular basis, what did I like to eat? What I almost school every day, at least once a day, we ate jacket potatoes. I don't know, it's called baked potatoes here, but over there it's called jacket potatoes because the jacket is the skin. You wash the potatoes so clean and then you bake them naked in the oven. So the skin gets really crispy and delicious, and it's all about the skin. And I haven't seen it done here at all, but that was my craving. And you eat it with a chicken salad on top, so you crisscross cut it and you bake it, and when it comes out you squeeze it with your 4 fingers and it opens up, and then you can put in whatever you want. My favorite was egg salad, putting egg salad in that hot potato. A lot of people eat it with baked beans. That's almost everybody at the cafeteria in school. That's what we ate and we loved it. And I think I still to this day feed my kids that. And it's one of their favorite things. Even if I'm not home, they learn how to do that, even in the microwave. They throw it in the microwave and they make the salad while that's cooking. And it's just a good, nutritious food. And you have your veggies and your meat and you're done. But during Christmas time, my number one nostalgia is mincemeat pie. And they're tiny little glorious desserts. It's a pie crust. It's made in a cupcake pan kind of thing. They're small, tiny, little delicious desserts. But I remember when people say, would you like a mincemeat pie? And I was like, no, because I thought mincemeat was like meat. I didn't know it was a combination of sultana, dark currant, golden raisins, candied fruits like orange and lemon zest with a little whiskey or brandy. It's marinated for days with some, you know, Granny Smith apple grated into it. So you make your mincemeat mix, even that will last you for a year, but you make a nice, beautiful pie crust, and you put them in a cupcake pie thing, and then you put the mincemeat in there and you bake it, and it comes out, and you dust it with a little powdered sugar. Oh my God, that is what I crave to this day. Actually, this kind of ignited my memory. I might be making them at the cafe next week. So, so you're very welcome to stop by and chit chat about it. So yeah, thank you so much for inviting me. I mean, I'm open for any questions, but I don't want to take, I know we're running out of time, but I just want to touch on the things that I enjoyed living in England, and these three things come to my mind.
Well, Beth, you are so passionate about food, and you took the simple jacket potato or baked potato and turned it into something very, very special. So thank you so much for your passion about food. And you will see me at the Lemon Slice Cafe sometime soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, we have Sheni Fahrali, who is from Turkey, and she is a realtor, and she is also a culinary nutrition expert. So,
hi, hello, thank you, Carol. First of all, I must say it's such a pleasure to be with you ladies and gentlemen, that quite a cast you gathered here, and so much to learn from all of you and to share with. And so Turkey's geographical location lent itself to be a place of everything, really, on the spice route. And Turks got to Turkey middle of 10th century, but before that there were thousands of ancient civilizations that lasted there. So we're talking the ancient Greeks, the Romans, the Sumerians. It's just everyone was there. And of course, there was always a Jewish quarter in every Roman town. The Armenians were there before anybody else, and so were the Kurds. So when you are in a land so rich with wonderful vegetation and fauna and everything else, that you're bound to have wonderful food, because you have the geography, you have the mountains, you have the Mediterranean and the Aegean and the Black Sea and the Marmara Sea. So we're talking lots of seafood, lots of lamb, lots of other animals, great herbs and vegetation that smells so good, and so many cultures. And of course, I'm a meze girl myself. I will rather have little plates of lots of different things, and instead of just one big meal. And in one meal, you can serve everyone who is a carnivore to a vegan, really, with all the mezes you can make, because there is so much variety. And the celebrations are very exciting, of course. And but I want to tell you, well, I do have this Jewish, Muslim, some Armenian cousins background. And so I'm like many Turks, I'm very well mixed, which is wonderful. So then we get to experience and celebrate all of the holidays and the cultures and so on. But what I'm loving last few years is this new generation of Turks who are really going for heirloom seeds, which are almost banned by the government, really, because they are all into those GMOs and so on. So they are now creating meals made with seeds from heirloom tomatoes and heirloom all kinds of vegetables. And they're going for the simple Syrian meals instead of making a big French meal or Italian or whatever. Simplest and more seasonal ingredients, and served with very, very basic sides, just to be able to enjoy what comes off the ground, the earth, and the animal itself. But of course, there's a lot of offal food, the animal's internal organs. And there's kokoreç. By the way, I do have a couple of good locations to get kokoreç from, so I will help you with that. And of course, drinking is a problem in Turkey now, the rakı and all the other alcoholic drinks, because the present government that's been there over 21 years, they are very Islamic and in the wrong way, unfortunately. So drinking has become a problem. And there's a saying in Turkey, if you're at a drinking table, you're going to be more beautiful, because as people get drunker and drunker, you look so beautiful to them. So the saying goes, let's get beautiful together. So, of course, these drinking tables have lots of mezes, the tapas kind of food. And these will vary from the vegetarian ones and cold dishes to, they call it the middle hot ones, like böreğs and pastries and so on. And then you have the meats. But a typical Turkish family will not have meat every day. It's like our Greek counterparts, really. We are actually the same people, I think, anyway. But you have lots of vegetables, you have lots of legumes, you have lots of nuts, and a lot of herbs, and of course, lots of bread. You can't have a Turkish table without the bread, and of course, the desserts. So. And then typically during the week at home, families will have water and lots of tea, as I'm having now, and lots of water, of course, and then the Turkish coffee or the Greek coffee, whatever coffee you want to call it. But the young people seem to be more into filtered coffee these days in Turkey, that I'm noticing a lot, quite a bit. My husband and I have rented a couple of places, one in Istanbul and one in Izmir. So we spend part of the year in Turkey now. We stay extended periods, and I have all these young friends I met through various cooking groups and so on. So we get together with them for meals, and I'm learning a lot, because technically I've been in America too long, and I'm not considered a real Turk anymore, so to speak. But as I go each time, there's so much joy in those tables. And of course, there are new ways of cooking the old foods, which is even better and smarter. So I'm learning those too. But one thing I noticed, and I've lived all over the world and traveled quite a bit, one thing I notice is that really we all have the same food, same ingredients, slight geographical differences causing slight differences in the herbs or the meat or whatever. But in short, that families are important, so are friends, and gathering around the table to break bread and to share a meal or two, and to share some good-hearted conversations and supporting each other is very important. And I'm very proud to be part of it. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Jenny. I loved the idea of the drinking tables. And I also noticed that you were drinking tea out of a glass cup, which I also do all the time.
Oh, of course.
For my European grandparents.
Yes.
Next, we are going to Poland, where Anka Zaramba is going to talk to us about the food of Poland.
Well, just a few words. Lithuania really said it all. We used to, after all, be the Lithuanian-Polish Commonwealth for a very long time. And our history is on our table. And I agreed with everything Turkey said until the last statement that all the food is the same. Having lived in Southeast Asia, South Pacific, and in East Africa, I think our attitudes, I would always end up with the women in the back, whether on a mud floor or on a comfortable little stool 3 inches off the ground, or in a very fancy with the Sub-Zero. That part of it was the same. It was almost always the mothers and the women. In Poland, it was always the women. The chefs with their fancy hats might have been the guys, but the women got the business done. Nowadays, traveling in Poland, I'm setting the festivals aside because Lithuania especially covered me totally. I mean, everything. She ran through my list, the number of meals, even the hay. Girl, you even got the hay on the table. Thank you. But I would take one step back maybe before I launch into what I think of Polish cooking now. We only got Christianity in the late 900s, so we're quite new to that side of things. We had a Jewish community for well over 400 years and was one of the most long established. So also, Carol, you covered the other part of my cooking, because that is inextricably linked with what defines Polish cuisine and what slightly differentiates me from the Scandinavian countries. And that also, although we use many of the same spices, the cardamom that you mentioned, we have it a little bit, not quite as much. Saffron is a real big deal. That's when you know somebody is truly welcoming you, when there's some saffron in the rice or when the duck has a few cloves stuck in it. That's when you know you're really welcome. In the old days, I left Poland before I was born. But I didn't know I left Poland until I went to school in the UK at age 6. I was in the diaspora where I turned on the radio. It was a Polish station. I got the newspaper. It was Polish language. And my father, having been a civil engineer, career soldier, World War II, fetched up, washed up in the UK. So what is emerging from all our talks? It's about the food. And when you're in a new place, a new country, you want the food, and you want the food of your homeland. So he started trading with one friend, bringing in food from Eastern Europe, which was behind that huge Iron Curtain at the time. And he was one of the first guys to bring in Cracker's products. And I'm talking about early 60s, late 50s, early 60s, when he opened his first shops. He had one in London, too much competition, didn't work out, moved up north. And Manchester, Chester, Warrington, the northwest of UK is where we started out. And I remember as a little girl being put into one of those, costumes with the flowers in the hair and marching around Olympia International Food Fair in London with Polish products. So that was, I didn't become a chef. I love cooking. I love inviting my friends around the table. But we were on the business side of bringing in our flavors. In Poland, my grandparents on my mother's side was still alive. My father was born in 1909, and he was orphaned at age 7. So that side, I know the new people, the new cousins who I've rediscovered. We found each other again. My father used to help them, but they were a very separate thing. With my mother and her mother, I knew them, and they were from Eastern Poland. My mother spent a lot of her time in Lviv, in what we call Lwów, the city of lions. So as you can imagine, with what's happening there now, I'm experiencing the horror of 1939 a little bit again. And what the Ukrainians, even though many of them are Orthodox and we were brought up as Catholics, so we have those different dates, there is so much more that we have in common. So my head is there. But with my grandmother, Brok nad Bugiem, which was in the Mazowieckie area, which was not far from, in the direction of Białystok, if that means anything, because Białystok, there was a huge Jewish community that left and was wiped out in various ways. But that was such an important area. I mean, to the time that I was growing up as a kid, that was the Jewish bakery. Oh, your bread is almost as good as, and then it would name somebody who was missing. And that I remember from my childhood. It's like, oh, who are we talking about? Where? And the faces would go down, because the towns in that area was depopulated from the 60s that I remember. And what my grandmother passed on was her love of dumplings. And we've talked about so many things. And a dumpling is around the whole of the world, has its own version. But this particular one for the family, for my family, they're called knedle, which is a word that I'm sure many people kind of recognize. But the knedle that we would make would be stuffed either with a strawberry or with a Hungarian plum, which in America they sell as prune plums. These big, and they're sort of with 2 points, and they're purple with a blue blush to them, hard to get by. They have a short season. Sometimes you can even find them frozen. The pit comes out easily with one slice of a knife. And what my grandmother used to do, she would stuff the plum with sugar and cinnamon mix. And she would have all these plums, and I would be counting, working out how many would each of us get. Mm-hmm. And she would boil potatoes, just regular white potatoes. They would come out and they would go into the hand mill. So you'd have these fluffy potatoes, not mashed, but put through so as much air could get through and as much steam could leave. Then she would take flour into these potatoes. Everything was by cup and pinch. There was no weight. I've worked it out since then, but there were many failures, dumplings that you could bounce off a wall. She would put an egg in, knead it very quickly, roll it, and then take a handful, put in a plum, create a ball. Balls would be piled up, balls would get boiled, would come up, butter melted, depending on the mood. Breadcrumbs, everything a la polonaise has breadcrumbs on it. And these big balls, and you get 2 or 3, or if you're greedy, even 4 on a plate, and that would be supper. You didn't need anything more but these. And they were absolute, for me, that is the smell at the end of summer, because this particular plum is ripe at the end of summer, August, and that's it. And I had my daughter in August. And I've lost my mother quite a long time ago, but the one thing my daughter remembers of her grandmother is being in that old house when I made the pilgrimage. I wanted to show my child where my grandparents had been from. And my mother stood with her and they made these dumplings. And since then, come hell or high water, I hunt round Washington for this plum and make sure that it's not just the sugar plums, which are too squat and too small, but the really long, pointy prune plum. And every August for her birthday, we make that dish. So that's my little family tradition that I offer you up. There were 1,000 other things, but I really feel that, thank you so much for letting me be part of this group. There's so much more we could talk about. It was beautifully covered by my friends and colleagues who I hope to meet again soon.
Thank you so much, Anga. And I just love the fact that you and your daughter make these plum dumplings on her birthday every year, as she remembers making them with her grandmother.
And I with mine, yeah.
That with her, yeah, that is very sweet.
Thank you.
Okay, next, Anka talked about traveling around the world and being in the kitchen with the women who were the cooks. But we all know that not all cooks are women. And our next cook is a young man from Switzerland, Jörg. And he's a sociology professor at American University. And he's going to talk to us about the food of Switzerland.
Thank you, Carol. Thank you, Lisa, for inviting me. I immigrated from Switzerland in 1967, and I've been in Silver Spring since 1980. But still, at the holiday time, especially for St. Nicholas, I bake these little dough men. I'm sorry.
Now we can see it. Great.
They're made from challah dough, and they're always baked at home and in bakeries for St. Nicholas Day, which is December 6th. And by the way, where I grew up in the region of Bern, bakers make challah every weekend, just like in the Jewish tradition. And it's a special treat for Sunday breakfast. Now, I want to just shed a little light on some other dishes that you may have heard of from Switzerland or may not. So to round out the picture a little bit and not just make it local for my case, what you often hear about is the Zurich veal ragout. It's a famous dish made with veal on a cream sauce, and it's often served with rösti. That's a potato dish. It's home fries from grated potatoes. And that was actually a mainstay of lots of households through the centuries. And I remember when I worked as a kid on a farm, a traditional farm, breakfast was rösti. It was the home fries, and people did not have individual plates, but they all ate from the big bowl that was in the middle of the table. It was that ancient custom with this food, this potato food. Now, you probably have heard about fondue and raclette. Those are cheese dishes, and cheese is a product of Switzerland that's quite famous. But in the 60s, the government realized that with the guaranteed milk price, there was too much cheese being accumulated, and that couldn't be sold, and it was in warehouses. And so together with the cheese cartel, started a campaign to eat more cheese, and the solution was fondue, the melted cheese in a pot that you eat with pieces of bread. And the slogan was, eat fondue, it's good, and gives you and puts you in a good mood. So that was a massive campaign to spread this cheese dish, which is not particularly healthy if you consider that it has a lot of fat in it and salt. There's an older cheese dish that has become known as well. It's called raclette, and that comes from the Alpers, those men and women who went to the mountains with the cattle in the summer, and they had some cheese and potatoes, and they would split a loaf of cheese and hold it against the embers of the fireplace or the open fire on the meadow, and strip the melted cheese and put it on the potatoes. And that has been popularized as well. You can buy little raclette ovens and buy your cheese and strip it and put it on potatoes, which is that's a nice dish. Very similar, also helps the cheese industry. I want to mention briefly a very modest dish from Basel, the city of Basel, which has a famous carnival. And at that time, they make a popular soup, and it is made from flour, which is burned in a roux. If you're familiar with Cajun or New Orleans cooking, the roux is is flour and butter, or flour and oil, roasted. I mean, burnt, browned, I should say, browned to a certain color. And that's the Basel flour soup, which has also onions, garlic, and red wine in it. And I have always wondered why this one dish in Switzerland that has a roux actually emerged, well, how it traveled from Cajun country to Switzerland. Where I came from, the Bernese region, a traditional dish that is even mentioned in a famous story by Jeremiah Gotthelf, a well-known writer in Swiss literature, and he describes it in full detail and color, is the Bernese platter, which is made up of brisket, ham, sausage made from tongue, and green beans, sauerkraut, and potatoes. It is a very opulent, very heavy dish that entertains a whole table round, and that is a traditional Swiss dish. there has been a saying by a Swiss food writer in Zurich some years ago, there is not really a Swiss cuisine. And if you take it as a glass half full, that means that different regions and different cuisines, and they have mingled, and they're shared in the country, which has 4 languages and different religions and so forth. But of course, you could also say, well, it's not high cuisine. It doesn't have a standing, and has probably borrowed the best dishes it has from France and from Italy. So this is what I wanted to conclude with. It's sort of a quick overview of my hometown food.
Makes me want to go to Switzerland, although I'm not sure about the tongue in the sausage that you were talking about. And thanks for telling us about how fondue became such a popular dish. I never imagined that it had a commercial reason.
Yes.
But thank you very much. Next, we're going to hear from Tatiana Sarbinska. Betsy mentioned how Tatiana was the queen of Bulgarian food.
Actually, thank you so much for inviting me, Carol and Lisa, to be part of that beautiful program. And I would like to apologize for my serious accent. I moved to United States 1991 from Bulgaria, and I didn't know even one English word, and I tried to work hard to learn, but still I have a very serious accent. I don't know, but thanks so much for the queen of the Bulgarian food. Yes, you are right. After I moved to United States, because I was homesick, I started to learn and remember all the recipes from my mother. Before that, I am all my life actually a professional musician. I was soloist at the International Climb Pirin Ensemble, very famous Pirin Ensemble, traveling all over in the world. My first visit to United States was 1980. We had a tour, about 6-month tour, and then we sang in a very big halls like a Kennedy Center in DC, Carnegie Hall, and everywhere in the United States, plus all over in the world. And I didn't have much time to cook, but when I moved here, I was, in Bulgaria, the communism collapsed, and I was invited, and that big iron curtains was somebody mentioned before, was actually down, and I had a chance to come, and I was invited to teach Eastern European music in Boston. Actually, in 1992, I started to teach at the Boston Conservatory Eastern European music. In the meantime, I was homesick, and I started to plus my music, and I organized my groups there. My first group in Boston called Zornica, beautiful men's group, and I love them, and I still have them. Then later I had another big group from Boston, women's group called Divizheni. And when I moved here, I organized another group here. First, I was welcoming one other group, Slavea, but then I started my own group, Orfea, which I'm still their director. That means I had that background, but I really, all my friends, when I'm inviting them here, they're telling me I am a good cook. And okay, I agree, they say. So I agree. What I remember from my childhood also is what Betsy mentioned. It's about the non-meat dishes in Bulgaria. Yes, we have a lot of beautiful recipes for vegetarian recipes, which is just because I grew up with that. When I was a little girl, we didn't have regular meat or vegetables in the winter, or every house actually grew their own pig I remember we had a pig and we killed the pig around Christmas time usually and celebrate. We call that a pig wedding because we're 3 or 4 days we're celebrating after Christmas, not just Christmas, but also we had the 2 goats. My mom prepared buttermilk and butter and cheese and some other food, you know. And I don't know how to prepare that, but I know how to make a banitsa, which is made with also is a vegetarian, and all my American friends love banitsa. It's with a filo kind of a cake, but I mean whatever, like a cake, but it's called banitsa, so filo and cheese. And also mishmash, which is making with a lot of vegetables, with the onion, tomato, the pepper, and feta cheese, which is delicious, and so many other. What I want to share with you, I try to be very fast, and I can fit in a time because the time is over. I want to tell you a little bit about our tradition because the Christmas is coming soon. I am Orthodox. Our actually Russians and Serbian, their New Year, it's 14th of January, but our Christmas is, I think, 6 or 7, something like that, of January. Our Christmas is 25th of December. And 24th of December, actually, in the evening, this is Christmas Eve. It was a very important family. Doesn't matter where are you, like here I'm listening a lot of Christmas songs. Doesn't matter where are you on Christmas time, Christmas Eve, you are home. And that because this is the family celebration. What I remember from my childhood, even during when I grew up in Bulgaria, was communism, and they prohibit us to be practice any religious. We were keeping our traditions, and we were at home, and we were keeping everything, and it was still keeping now. It's beautiful traditions, and I want to share what my parents were doing, and not just me, but all over in Bulgaria, in different regions. We have so many regions. The tradition is different, but it's in general is similar. What I remember is Christmas, 24th of December, it's still actually fasting day. We're starting our fasting 15th of November and finishing 24th of December. And that's the last evening we are eating only vegetarian food. What I remember is we'll clear up the floor from anything, and we are putting a lot of straw related with the Bethlehem Jesus Christ's birth, and we're putting straw all over. Then we're spreading that kind of tablecloth on the floor. This is Bulgarian traditional tablecloth on the floor, and then we are putting a lot of vegetarian dishes. Those vegetarian dishes definitely have to include garlic. Garlic is a symbol of health. Have to include walnuts. And particularly, we have at least that many walnuts. How many people are there? Because after we finish the dinner, we have to crush the walnut. And if the walnut is full and healthy, your ear is gonna be full and healthy. If it's little bit, maybe it's not gonna be completely. But what I remember, my father we were living near the woods, and my father has to go and cut a big log. Usually pine tree or pear tree. And the log, he's making a hole and putting their essence. And then they put it in a fireplace. And that log need to be in fire. We have to keep that log in fire whole night to the next morning. And the ashes from that, we're not throwing out. We're putting actually in a field for have a good crop to have a good abundance for the year, or where the chickens are, where the animals are, just to have a lot of abundance for the year. And then before we start our dinner, we have a pray, because usually it's near the fireplace, but also in kind of forwarding to east, and there is the icon of Jesus Christ and Virgin Mary. We're having our prayers, and then the first things is we have to and we are serving in that kind of dishes, This is for the duvet, which is a very delicious vegetarian, or maybe with meat, mixed with okra, potato, tomato, pepper, and also the dishes. Also, we are using that kind of dishes. And a lot of, one of the main dishes also is beans. We're having beans, popcorn, definitely, beans, popcorn, and the stuffed cabbage, stuffed dry pepper, because we're having everything from, from our own land, from our gardens. My mom prepare everything for the winter. And then my father is breaking the holy bread, which is, I'm going to show. Yes, here is kind of, you can see beans, walnuts, and fruits, a lot of fruits, and definitely rakia. This is Bulgarian famous brandy. We have, in Bulgaria, we are not having that. We're drinking rakia from the beginning. We're drinking wine during the meal, but we always have meze. We never have something without. Yeah, you can see also here that the family sitting around near. This is the table, and then we're having the holy bread. The holy bread can be a kind of decorated this way, or with this is the log. This is the log with the fire, and holy bread can be with candle or decorated. That holy bread, we're putting there a coin. And when my father started to break the bread, he's giving first piece to the Jesus Christ, Virgin Mary, and every single person on the table. And then for the, first for the father, then mother, then the kids, and everybody try to find the coin. If the coin, the person who has a coin is going to have a beautiful, beautiful year, very successful year. I was so, of course, I was the smallest one, and the coin was always with me. That's how they did, I don't know, but I always have the coin. And actually, when we finish the dinner, nobody has to leave the table. When everybody finish dinner, everybody can go. And if you need to go somewhere, you have to go up, but bend it. You don't have to be taller than the bread wheat. It's a very interesting tradition. And then when we are leaving, we are not taking the table, all the dishes away. We are leaving there everything for the dead relatives. They're coming during the night to have also feast. And after that, we are so excited to wait for our koledari. After 12, after midnight, from house to house, young men were going and with the special branches decorated with popcorns and some other decoration. They're coming and singing Christmas carols, and the old door, every house opening the doors, and they're coming in, they're blessing the house, and they have actually all of them putting wine in that kind of butlitza. We call that butlitza. And there, from mouth to mouth, everybody drink wine, then from the other house. But nobody is drunk, because in the meantime, they have also for meze some sausages like that, or like that, or some other dish. Oh, after midnight you cannot eat. You can eat meat, and next day you can have a veg again, but with meat. Or you can have a lot of pork because we already killed the pig, and we have a lot of meat, and the whole neighborhood from this house to this house, everybody celebrated. And that's actually my story. But if you want to have some of my recipes from my mom, again, you can go and have that book, which you can learn a lot of songs from me. It's called Songs from the Mountains. It is Orfea, from Orfea repertoire taught by me. And you can learn to sing, and you can have a lot of Bulgarian recipes there. And actually, when I'm bringing there in Bulgaria, my friends, my groups, they love banitsa, they love gyuvech, they love mishmash, they love so many of those dishes you can have here in my book. Thank you so much. And I try to be very fast, even though I hope you do understand my broken English. But that's what I remember. I have so many other stories for Easter, for everywhere, but that's for the next session, I hope. Bye-bye, guys. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Tatiana. It seems like we have to have a whole program on the vocal music and the culinary traditions of Bulgaria. You offered us so much. Thank you very much. And I love the fact that your book is music and recipes.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay.
Consider yourself invited, Tatiana, to do a program just on the book.
Okay. Thank you.
We'll be in touch with you. Thank you so much. It was great.
You are very welcome. Thank you for inviting me again.
And your energy and enthusiasm are wonderful.
Yeah,
Thank you.
This is me.
Our last guest, besides Lisa Martin, is Josh Drieben, who is a comic, unlike me, but like me, he is from Ashkenazi Jewish background. So take it away, Josh.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for having me. Great program. I'd like to thank the audience for being here. I know you could be home watching Hallmark movies, but you're spending your time with us, so we appreciate it. Yeah, I'm going to talk about some of my favorite Ashkenazi foods. I think our history is a little bit unique, where we're coming from a lot of different countries, forming this one culture. And I think with Ashkenazi food, you have to look at not just some of the foods that we may have created, but also some of the foods that we popularized in Maryland, in America. So I'll be talking about that tonight as well. So when I talk about my favorite personal Ashkenazi foods, I think you have to start with the bagel. The bagel is like the Beatles of Ashkenazi food. Now, when was it created? There is some discrepancy. There are a lot of different accounts of when it was originated. By most historians, it was in Poland, might have been in the 1600s. There's a school of thought that it was earlier in the 1200s. It's a little bit difficult because in the 1600s, people were not posting their food pics on Instagram saying, look what we just created. Hashtag blessed. But the bagel is definitely one of the most popular foods, which was brought to America in the late 1800s and became pretty popular as well. My next all-star, I'm going to go with matzo ball soup. I think matzo ball soup is amazing. It will cure COVID. It will fix a broken leg. It will cure gout. It's medicine. It's amazing. It's an incredible dish. Everyone should try it. You will love it, I promise. And if you don't, you will get your money back from tonight's charge to get into our Zoom. So definitely check out matzo ball soup. Next all-star food, especially being December, potato latkes, my personal favorite, fried potato pancakes. Now, these are amazing. I've loved these since I was a little kid. Now, I'm going to get a little bit controversial here. I hope you can stay with me on this. The way that latkes are served, some people like to eat them with powdered sugar. Some people like to eat them with sour cream. Some people like to eat them with applesauce. Before I go into that, I do think applesauce deserves a lot of credit, though, because it's really the only baby food that went on to have a career with adults. So we should definitely give it a big shout out there. But I like latkes plain. I like them plain with nothing on them. That's just my preference. I know that's very controversial, but you know, we're not afraid of controversy on this Zoom. So you can eat them however you want. I have no problem. If you want to put peanut butter on them, go right ahead. It doesn't change my life at all. I wouldn't recommend it. But for me, a great latke does not need anything else to go with it. A couple other dishes that are popular, but not my personal favorite. Kugel, noodle kugel, is a very popular dish. It's made of egg noodles, often will have cottage cheese in it, cinnamon, a lot of different variations on how it's made. I would estimate over my life, I have probably tried 185 different kugel samples, and everyone has told me that theirs is totally different, and I am going to love it. And I lied to many bubbies over the years and said that I love their kugel. And the truth is, I didn't. I don't like it. I'm sorry. I respect it. A lot of people love it just for whatever reason. I've never been a big fan, but it's hugely popular. So we're going to keep that in the top 5 list. I think a couple other people talked about borscht as well. I'm not a big fan of beets, so not much of a chance of me enjoying that. But I remember seeing my grandparents eat it and their friends, and they loved it. So I'm going to give borscht a shout out. To me, I think it's basically like beet juice, kind of, in a bowl. Not to be confused with Beetlejuice. That's a little bit different. But I think 2 of the more popular foods that are associated with Ashkenazi Jews probably weren't invented by Ashkenazi Jews, but definitely became popular when Ashkenazi Jews immigrated to the United States. So the first all-star in this group I'm going to give is the deli. Jewish delis are an amazing experience. You can get a corned beef sandwich at Giant. That's not a corned beef sandwich. And the great thing in our area, we have a lot of great delis now. For years, maybe we didn't, but we have a lot of great delis here. So delis are amazing. Corned beef sandwich, pastrami. There's definitely influence from Eastern European Ashkenazi Jews. But when they immigrated to primarily New York, they also had a lot more ingredients available. It was a lot easier to get meat. So the Jewish deli has been a real huge part of my life. I have spent many hours in them eating sandwiches that are like the size of shoe boxes turned upside down. They're huge, amazing. And last, I'm going to talk about the hot dog, which is a very interesting story because there is a lot of discrepancy about who invented the hot dog. And actually, next month, I'm going to be performing the history of the hot dog at Silver Spring Town Center through interpretive dance. No, I'm just kidding, Lisa. I am not going to be doing that. Hot dogs and Jewish culture are really kind of tied together because in the early 1900s, a Polish Jewish immigrant came to America, came to Coney Island, worked in a restaurant, and he had seen the hot dog when he was in Poland. There were different variations. The hot dog, or form of hot dog, it was accepted in Europe, not so much in America, kind of like soccer and David Hasselhoff's music. But this guy named Nathan Handwerker, he's in the restaurant and he decides, this has potential. Americans won't touch them because they're gross. Now, without getting too graphic, they were pretty gross in the early 1900s. The way that they were made, very unsanitary, people got sick. He changed all that. All beef, changed the way that they were made. Marketing genius. He was the Nathan of Nathan's Hot Dogs. Forever changing our 4th of July's with that disgusting competition on TV, which is, I love hot dogs. I can't watch the 4th of July hot dog eating contest. A few years ago, the guy who won it, he ate 61 hot dogs and then proposed to his girlfriend right after. Yeah, and you guys think romance is dead. But anyway, those are really my favorite foods of Ashkenazi influence, Ashkenazi creation. Thank you so much for having me. This was great, and I appreciate it.
Josh, I smiled throughout your whole program because you talked about my very favorite foods. And I love noodle kogo. I actually went to the synagogue last week just because for the oneg, they were having all different kinds of noodle kogo. And I had a ball eating, even pumpkin noodle kogo. But you named the great Jewish foods. Thank you so much for that. And thank you, everyone, for coming. And we have one more person, Lisa Martin, our leader, is going to tell us a very short story.
Yes, thank you so much. This has been great. Just I've been able to live in 3 countries in Europe, all Northern European countries, and I have Italian heritage. Italy is almost the only country I haven't been to in Europe. Well, I haven't been in the Caucasus either. But when I was growing up, we always had fish for our Christmas Eve meal. And when my family was not really religious, but it is a Italian Catholic tradition. My mom remarried when I was 10, and my stepfather's family is more Southern Italian, and they were really into that Feast of the 7 Fishes tradition, and they would serve, I had already decided at a very young age I was vegetarian, but I was forced to eat things I didn't want to eat, like octopus, calamari. I love calamari now, and I don't even like the rings anymore. I like the tentacle kind. Pasta puttanesca with anchovies, stuffed clams, variations of shrimp, grilled shrimp or fried shrimp, or shrimp cocktail. They would usually shrimp cocktail. We did a lot, and some other things too. I said stuffed clams, right? And crab meat in the stuffed mushrooms. I think that was another. That's what we do now, and. Anyway, that's the Italian tradition of the Feast of 7 Fishes. But I just wanted to mention a tradition I loved that I learned in Sweden when I was living there in the mid-90s, and I got divorced. I was at my friend's house in the Swedish countryside, and her dad was making the Swedish gröt, which is the rice pudding, and it's made with cream, sugar, and the long grain rice. And butter, and they only put 1 almond in it, and they said whoever gets the almond is going to be the next one to get married. And I was like eager to get remarried or at least find someone. And so I kept eating bowl after bowl of the Swedish grout. And they started getting worried, and they said, you better put more almonds in there so she can get one. And I don't think I even got one, and he kept adding more and more almonds. But they eat something similar and do something similar in Estonia and across the Nordic countries. Estonia has a lot of the Nordic and Scandinavian influence. So anyway, your stories brought back so many memories of friends and times I've had abroad, as well as times at home with my own family. Thank you again to Carol Light for hosting a wonderful program. I knew she would do a great job, and everyone gets so into it. We went almost an hour over time, and we even had a couple no-shows. But we could just go on and on. We are hosting another culinary traditions program of the African American community, and that is going to be during Black History Month on Thursday, February 7th at 7, hosted by one of our founding board members, advisory board member, Dr. Cheryl Brissett Chapman. So that's on February 7th, culinary traditions of the African American community. And then we're gonna do more too in the spring. We've had requests. We've done African Heritage, API, and the Diaspora Latinoamericana, and the Caribbean community came out for African Heritage and wanted to have their own, and we are going to do it because people have a lot of stories to share, a lot of food memories. So it's great. But thank you again to all of our wonderful panelists and our awesome host, Carol Light. And I want to wish everyone happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, and all the celebrations that are to come, and all the best in the coming year. I hope to see you at more of our events.
Thank you, everybody. It's a great